Do 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 do. At the gala. Do 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 do. Gen 8, the point of no return. This is officially the point where the Pokemon franchise divided, and everyone went into full-blown panic mode. There was already a big divide when Gen 5 came out and had the audacity to not allow pre-Gen Pokemon until the post-game. How could they? This is an outrage! But this gen, oh boy did it break the fandom. The biggest point of contention being that you could not bring every Pokemon into this game, and this absolutely split the internet in half. Video essays were made about how the developers were lazy. Reddit detectives pointed out the models were the same as their 3DS games. And basically, there is a lot of complaining from channels that made videos every time something comes out about something they don't like. Don't you just love channels that do that? They make a 20-minute video essay every time something they don't like does anything? Because I just love those people. For real though, a major red flag for me for YouTubers is that if they make more than 5 videos complaining about the exact same subject, then, yeah, I do not trust them anymore. Because at that point, I feel like they're obsessed and should just move on. Anyway, controversy aside, we got 96 Pokemon introduced, but some of them are relatives of older Pokemon, so there's less than that. Well, let's get into them. Grookey is a monkey and the grass starter of Gen 8. This guy carries around a stick that it can use both as a blunt force weapon and as a way to strike up a loud beat that's able to rejuvenate plants. Level 16, they evolve into Thwacky. It now has 2 sticks. These guys' societal respect of each other is based on how fast of a beat they can produce, and they like jamming out so much that they'll play their song even after their opponent has been knocked out. And finally, at level 35, they evolve into Rillaboom. 8 generations, and we finally have a gorilla Pokemon. Yeah, I know some people call Slacking a gorilla, but he's like a buff sloth, so does he really count? This guy is irrefutably a gorilla, though. One thing to note about this gen is that all the starters remain one type their whole line. This and Gen 2 are the only time this happens, so, that's a thing. Anyways, these guys carry around a wooden stump they use as a drum, and depending on how they tap the drum, they can use it as a weapon. And the one who can drum the best is the leader of the troop. And like real gorillas, despite being intimidating, they're pretty gentle creatures. They also have a G-Max form. These guys now have an entire forest that makes up a drum set, and their beats can shake the entire country. So yeah, the drummer gorilla. Rock on, dude. The Gen 8 fire starter is the Flaming Rabbit Score Bunny. These guys can charge up their fire by running around, and when pumped up, they can make their feet pads and nose radiate heat. Level 16, they evolve into Raboot. These guys have fur that helps keep them warm during cold weather, and they kick berries off trees and then bounce them on their feet to practice their footwork for their next stage. Speaking of, at level 35, they evolve into Cinderace. These guys kick pebbles up in the air with their feet and then turn them into flaming soccer balls. Yes, I say soccer, you want to fight about it? Anyway, they kick these flaming soccer balls at their opponent, which scorches them. But like real sports players, they're very show-offy, which can sometimes be their downfall in a fight. In their G-Max form, these guys have big soccer balls that can reach 300 feet in diameter, and never miss. So yeah, the fire bunny that plays soccer. Oh, by the way, England, it's kind of your fault we call it soccer in the first place, so you have no one to blame but yourself. The water starter of Gen 8 is Sobble, a lizard thing that people think is based on a chameleon, which aren't even aquatic animals, so I don't get it. Anyway, these guys' defense mechanism is to cry. You see, their tears have a chemical makeup of over 100 onions, so as such being around them makes it impossible to not cry. Also, when they get wet, they change color, which can cause them to become invisible. Level 16, they evolve into Drizzle. These guys are very smart, but very lazy, and prefer setting traps for foes instead of direct confrontations. But if they are confronted, they can make natural water balloons, and they toss them at things. Finally, at level 35, they evolve into Inteleon. These guys can shoot water from their fingers at the speed of bullets, and they can glide thanks to the membrane on their back. Plus, they're excellent at detecting weak points. They also have a G-Max form where they become a weird tower thing. These guys have water they can shoot at Mark 7 speed, and they're so good at shooting they can hit a small berry over 9 miles away. So yeah, the water lizard. Still don't get what chameleons have to do with water. The Gen 8 small mammal is Squovit. Squovit. Is that how you pronounce it? It doesn't feel right, but whatever. These guys are squirrels. They're always eating berries and keeping them in their cheeks. In fact, they get stressed out if nothing is in there, and they'll put pebbles in their mouth to compensate. Level 24, they evolve an ingredient. These guys are always putting berries in their tail for storage, but they put so much in there they always drop them. But since they're so stupid, they don't even notice it. Their teeth are so strong they can chew through even the toughest berry, and if they see a berry tree, they immediately go there, even if in the middle of a battle. So yeah, the greedy squirrels. The Gen 8 bird is Rookidee. A rare, pure flying type, these chickadees are very brave Pokemon that'll fight anything regardless of how strong they are. This is because fighting helps them get stronger even if they lose. Also, females hate getting dirty. Level 18, they evolve into Corvisquire. Now based on a Raven, these guys are as intelligent as their inspiration, using tools in battle like flinging rocks at foes or using rope to tie them up. Also, because of the experience from their previous form, they are better at gauging their opponent's strength. Finally, level 38, they evolve into Corviknight. Now gaining the Steel type, these guys are considered very intimidating, and considering they're the king of the sky in the Galar region. Their pure black feathers are said to cause terror in the hearts of even the bravest foes. But they're not completely feared though, as they often taxi people around the region. Yeah, they're basically untouched in the skies in Galar, but only in Galar, because the next game's region introduces a predator there. But we'll get to that next time. They also have a G-Max form, whereupon they can make winds more powerful than a hurricane, and can shoot blades off their back that can home in on enemies. So yeah, the chickadee that becomes a raven. Don't quote me on that. Blipbug is a very intelligent Pokemon always looking for information. They also possess hairs that can assess their surroundings. Level 10, they evolve into Dottler. Thanks to all the learning they did, these guys are now psychic types. These guys barely move, but they're very much still sapient, using their powers to monitor the world and prepare for evolution. Speaking of, at level 30, they evolve into Orbeetle. This psychic ladybug is highly intelligent and can use its powers to detect whatever around it for 6 miles. They also have a G-Max form that turns them into a UFO. They have psychic energy so powerful that if they use their entire power at once, they can mind control everyone in their area. So yeah, the Psychic Ladybug. I don't know what the inspiration behind that is, but it's cool, I guess. We've had Kitsunes and Fennec Foxes, but Nickit gives us our first Red Fox Pokemon. These guys are thieves. Their padded paws make it so they're silent when they walk, which allows them to sneak into other Pokemon's homes and steal their food. And they're hard to track because they use their tail to cover their footprints. Level 18, they evolve into Thievul. These master criminals secretly implant scents on their victim, whereupon they stalk them to see where they live so they can steal from them. So yeah, they're cunning like a fox. Gossifleur is a flower. These guys are very upbeat, always singing happy songs. They also anchor themselves into the ground to absorb sunlight. Level 20, they evolve into Eldegoss. These guys have seeds on their cotton, which they can spread around to give nutrients to other living creatures. And their fuzz can be turned into a gorgeous yarn, which is quite popular in the Galar region. Not much else to say here. They're one of those Pokemon that just kind of exist. No one really talks about it or uses them. They're just filler. Wooloo is a sheep. These guys' wool is very tough, allowing them to survive even falling off a cliff with no damage. However, if it grows too long, they can't move, necessitating a wool trimming, which is turned into clothing that's very tough. Level 24, they evolve into Dubwool the Ram. They have very springy wool, which bounces anything that touches it, so their wool isn't turned into carpets, since, if it is, you'll just end up with a trampoline in your living room. Also, their horns are purely ornamental. Their only purpose is to impress females. They never actually use them in combat. Wooloo became a very popular Pokemon because of its cuteness, but it also became the subject of a minor controversy. You see, there's a certain infamous animal rights group that starts with a P that, they believe that you have to kill sheep to get their wool. And because of that, they used Wooloo to, they posted this image, which got them clowned on even more than they usually do. But then again, these bozos are always doing something that they get clowned on for. From getting angry at cartoon characters holding shepherd sticks, to being mad that a video game allows you to fish. And they even insult dead people, so yeah, they're very much the butt of joke when it comes to charities. I just had to say that. So yeah, that's Wooloo. And who cares if they're their sweater or not? They're not real. Who cares what happens to their wool? Actually, who cares what happens to sheep's wool? Sheep make wool. That's their thing. Do you get mad at people for getting haircuts? No? Then just buzz off already. A snapping turtle, Choodle, is a very weird-looking reptile that has a very nasty bite. This is because they have an itch on their tooth that makes them want to bite everything in their sight. Though in battle, they first start by slamming foes with their horns, but then they clamp down on their opponent and never let go. It's mentioned that there's a popular game where kids will dip their sticks in ponds and then have Choodles bite onto them and see which one holds on the longest. Level 22, they evolve into Dreadnought. Now part rock type, these guys have powerful jaws that can bite through solid steel and giant boulders. Like real snapping turtles, they stay underwater waiting for prey to come by, and then they extend their necks and devour them. In their G-Max form, they become bipedal, where they slam down on things and then bite them. So yeah, snap it up. How was that even a pun? What was that even? Whatever. Yampa is an electric corgi. These guys build up electricity as they run, and they're popular as herding dogs. But they're also very gluttonous, and it's said they only help people so they can get treats. Level 25, they evolve into Bolthound. Sadly, not much to say here, as the only information we're given is that they just charge up by running, and running pumps up their leg muscles. Wait, this is the same thing they said about Manetric. Talk about recycling. Okay, look, I like Yamper, but this feels a little too familiar. You know what I mean? Roly-Coly is a sentient piece of coal. Despite being named after a nickname for pill bugs, they have nothing to do with the bugs. These guys not only look like coal, but they have the same composition too. These guys love rolling around and will often race each other, not even slowing down on rough terrain. As you can imagine, part of them can be used for fuel, with people gathering them to flake off skin pieces to use as a substitute for non-sapient coal. At level 18, they evolve into car coal. These guys form coal bricks inside their body, which has been used for reasons you'd think they've been used. They can move at speeds of over 18 miles an hour, and their flames are nearly 2,000 degrees, with them getting hotter depending on their emotion. And finally, at level 34, they evolve into colossal. Despite their scary appearance, they're described as being quite peaceful, but if bothered, they will incinerate you and then tear you to pieces. When mad, they glow red. When G-Max, these guys are like a giant oven, and apparently there was once an incident where they saved a bunch of people during a blizzard. Okay then. Okay, coal is not something I was expecting to get a Pokémon based on, especially before dolphins or swordfish, but I guess you need more stuff for rock type, so whatever. At first, Applin may look like a sentient apple, but it's not. This guy's actually a worm. W-Y-R-M, so the dragon, not the sentient noodle. Anyway, these guys hide in apples to avoid predators, and the apple gives them a food source, so that's a bonus. Also, they produce fluids that prevent the apple from rotting. Applin have 3 evolutions, depending on what kind of apple you feed it. If given a tart apple, they evolve into Flapple. They can now fly using the apple skin as wings. And because of the sour apple that induced evolution, they have acid in their cheeks that they can spray as a defense mechanism, which is strong enough to melt metal, and it can even be used to repair their apple. If they're instead given a sweet apple, they evolve into Appleton. These guys emit a sweet-smelling scent that attracts bugs, which it feeds on. And their skin is very tasty, and kids have been known to snack on it. That's actually kind of creepy. I don't know, I just find the idea of ripping a piece off a sentient creature and then eating it to be really creepy for some reason. I know it can just grow it back and it's just skin flakes, it's nothing major, but still, the idea just weirds me out. I can't explain it. Anyway, there's also the currently unreleased Diplin. What these guys deal is, or even how you get it, is still unknown as I write this, but once the big video comes out, we'll hopefully know more about him and I'll update accordingly. Also, this group has a G-Max form which has the same model between Flappin and Appleton. So I only listed as one thing, despite the game treating them like they're separate entities, but I don't care. Silly Cobra. Okay, I know it's supposed to probably like Silicobra, like silicon, but I'm just gonna say Silly Cobra. It's a sandy snake. These Pokemon store sand in a pouch as a defense mechanism, and when threatened, they spray it from their nose to blind their attacker before making their escape. As they shed their skin, they can hold more and more sand. One disadvantage of this, however, is that they have a terrible sense of smell, and therefore can't tell them apart. At level 36, they evolve into Sandaconda. These guys are like launchers of sand. When they compress themselves, they can shoot out over 200 pounds at once, with enough force to launch a dump truck. Also, they turn some grains into sharp bits, so watch out. When G-Max, they can now shoot over 1,000,000 tons at once, and they can shatter a skyscraper. So yeah, the Sand Snake. A cramorant is a very forgetful bird that is super strong, but it often forgets that it's fighting in the first place. Also, they often bite off more than they can chew and try to swallow their prey whole, which leads to them getting the animal stuck in its throat. This relates to their gimmick, where if it uses the move Surf or Dive, it'll come back with a Pokémon in its mouth, depending on its health. At about 50%, they return with their main prey, Arrokuda. More on him in a minute. However, if below 50%, they come back with a Pikachu in their throat. When in this form, if they get hit out, they spit out their prey at their foe, and if it's Pikachu, the foe also gets paralyzed. So yeah, the seabird Pokemon. Arrokuda is the Barracuda, and the animal I just talked about for Cramorant. This fish catches food by charging at them headfirst like an arrow. They have very sharp teeth, so if they catch prey, they're basically dead as soon as they clamp down on them. Sadly, they have bad eyesight, so they don't have much success. Plus, when they eat too much, they become sluggish and become prime targets for birds. Level 26, they evolve into Barracuda. These Pokemon are very fast, capable of swimming at over 100 miles an hour, ramming prey so they can bite them, and they can leap out of the water to attack birds, so who's laughing now? Anyway, their flesh is also delicious, so people like eating them. Toxel is a weird salamander-like creature. They have poisonous skin like a dart frog, and they can manipulate this toxin to produce electricity. They can also drink incredibly dirty water with no side effect. They're also attention hogs. Level 30, they evolve into Toxtricity, which has two possible forms, amped and low-key, with its form depending on what personality Toxel has. These Pokemon look like they're always playing air guitar, but in reality, they're scratching their chest to generate electricity. Although it does make a sound like a bass guitar when they do this, so whatever. Anyway, the volts they can shoot out can be over 1,500 volts, so watch out. These guys drink purely dirty and stagnant water to boost their poison. In their G-Max form, these guys leak toxins everywhere and produce more electricity than a storm cloud. So yeah, the weird electric salamander guitarist things. Interesting concept, but I don't know what I would do if I had to make a poison electric type either. A flaming centipede, Sizzlepede stores flammable gases in its body, which allows it to generate heat. These guys kill prey by constricting them and then burning them until they're well done. Level 28, they evolve into Centiscorch. These guys heat up their body and then whip themselves around like a, whip, in order to burn their foes. In addition, they have very sharp teeth. When G-Max, these guys can create waves that incinerate their foes. They can even heat up the air so much they cause storms. So yeah, Flaming Centipede. I don't know why they decided to make the centipede Pokemon always so vicious. Well, then again, I guess centipede are pretty vicious animals. Okay, I'm getting off topic. Let's move on. It may seem odd for an octopus to not be part water type. Clavopus is an octopus with fists at the edge of its tentacles. These guys are as smart as a 3-year-old and very curious. Sadly, though, their way of investigating things is to punch them. If they lose their arm, they can just grow back, so they're not very cautious at all. When leveled up knowing the move Taunt, they evolve into Grapploct. These Pokemon are very strong thanks to being mostly muscle, and their main move is to grapple their opponent. These guys mostly live in the sea, but they occasionally come to land to look for opponents. Once they fight, they return to the sea. So yeah, the angry Squidwards. Sinistea is a ghost possessing a teacup. There are two kinds, depending on if their teacup is real or a forgery. But literally the only difference is a logo, so I'm not including it as a difference here. Anyway, these guys are full of a liquid that, when stirred, causes them to become dizzy. And if they get drank, then they absorb the life force of their drinker. But this doesn't happen often, as they taste terrible, so they don't get a chance to go very far. When given a teapot, the one required depends on if yours is real or fake, they will evolve into Polteageist. These guys have tea you can actually drink now, though you can only have some if it trusts you. They also shoot tea at you if mad, but this will make you very cold, surprisingly. Also, their tea is fatal in high doses. Also, the type of tea their pot was last used for determines their personality. So yeah, very British Pokemon. Hatena is a walking head wearing a hat. Well, it's actually a protrusion, which you can use to sense other creatures' emotions. They get very panicked with their strong emotions and will never warm up to you unless you're calm. Because of this, it prefers to live in isolated areas so it can be left alone without other people's thoughts. Level 32, they evolve into Hatchram. This Pokemon doesn't freak out over strong emotions anymore, and now it does something about it. But I didn't say it calms you down. Well, I guess it calms you down in a draconic sense. If faced with strong emotions, they'll pummel you with their prehensile braids, which are strong enough to knock out a boxer. And finally, level 42, they evolve into Hattern. In order to avoid people, they emit psychic beams that cause headaches. And if you're too loud around them, they'll tear you apart. Because of this, it's known as a witch of the forest, and it's advised to stay away from them. When G-Max, they can detect emotions from 30 miles away, and if they even remotely sense hostility, they'll attack. So yeah, aren't they just a bundle of joy? Impy Dimp is a gremlin, imp, goblin thing. Like all three of its inspirations, they love messing with other creatures, and in fact, they actually feed off the sensation of being annoyed. They live in groups where they practice the art of pranking each other. Level 32, they evolve into Morgrem. Like their predecessor, they feed on negative emotions and will follow people around who have troubled thoughts. They're also very cunning. They like to lure people into a false sense of security. When they get close enough, they stab them with their prehensile hairs. And finally, at level 42, they evolve into Grimmsnarl. This Pokemon's hairs are like tentacles, capable of holding even a Machamp in place. And don't worry, old habits die hard, and they still love pulling pranks. When G-Max, they can bore into the terrain, and their legs are so strong they can leap over the tallest buildings. So yeah, the Gremloblimps. Very nice. Milcery is a sentient dollop of cream. These Pokemon are born from particles in the air coming together to form a single being, and any baker visited by them will have good fortune. Now this guy is one of the weirdest ways of evolving. You see, the first thing you need to do is give it some sort of sweet. Alright, simple enough, but then you have to spin in place, depending on what it's holding and what directions you're spinning. It'll end up making different forms of its evolution, all creamy. This Pokemon is very sweet, and when it trusts its trainer, it'll even feed him its head fruits. And the happier they are, the better tasting the cream it emits is. When G-Maxed out, Creamy resembles a massive cake and is filled with a ridiculously high amount of calories. Just one drop of its cream will cause an instant sugar rush. So yeah, the cream Pokemon. Phalanx is a strange group of walking heads based on the phalanx formation. These Pokemon travel into groups of 6, with one of them being the leader, or as they're known, the Brass. The Brass's orders are absolute, and the rest of the troop follows them without fail. Now, it should be noted, these guys are objectively different beings, meaning that it is official that the Pokeball can capture multiple things at once, as long as they have some sort of connection, I guess. That's definitely something to think about. I mean, it's always been kind of like a thing since Exeggcute, but they were kind of like a hive mind, but these guys, they seem to be different beings that are just very loyal to each other, so this just proves the Pokeball can capture different beings or something. I don't know how to phrase this, but whatever. Pincurchin is a sea urchin, but its spikes aren't filled with poison. Instead, they're filled with electricity. They're very timid Pokemon, discharging if they're even grazed against, and they spend all their time eating seaweed. Yeah, like I said before, one-stage Pokemon really don't have much to talk about, so let's just move on. Snom is a caterpillar covered in ice. They have a diet of snow which allows them to create better defenses for their hide, and when they sleep, they pretend to be an icicle to avoid predators. When given high friendship at night, they evolve into Frostmoth. These guys release scales from their wings that are very cold, and when they flap, they can create massive blizzards. They're also very protective of the mountains, and will chase away anyone who tries to hurt them. Snom ended up becoming a very popular Pokemon in the fandom thanks to its rather ugly cute design and general dopey behavior. So yeah, the little ice worm that everyone loves. Well, we're in the UK, so it makes sense to have a Pokemon based off its famous landmark, Stonehenge. Stonejourner is a very mysterious Pokemon, as they spend all their time watching the sun move through the sky, and when threatened they can deliver very powerful kicks, which considering that their legs are rocks and, yeah, that makes sense. And notably, their composition is similar to a stone from a faraway land, so that means something, I guess. But their most mysterious behavior is that once a year, a bunch of them gather around and form a circle to do something. I don't know. Considering how much Stonehenge is surrounded in mystery, it makes sense that the Pokemon based on them is also mysterious. Ice-Q is a penguin with a block of ice for a head. They're not native to Galar. Rather, they came to the region from a faraway cold land. And believe it or not, despite their penguin build, they're actually pretty weak swimmers. So instead, they capture prey by dipping their hair in the water to attract fish. Their main gimmick is that their head is usually covered in an ice cube that helps absorb hits, and it helps keep them cool when it gets hot. However, if shattered, they get a much smaller face that is very worried, probably because now it can take real damage. So yeah, the ice cube-faced penguin that can't swim. The end. Indeedee are weird cat-rabbit creatures. Like Hatena, they can sense emotions, though they thankfully enjoy this and don't hurt you. In fact, they get energy from positive emotions, so they like cheering people up. In addition, they can share what they learn with others of their kinds. Male Indeedee have horns that are straight up, and females have horns face straight down. So yeah, that's them indeed. The Pika clone of Gen 8 is more Pico. These Pokemon are always hungry, and as such, they always carry seeds around with them, which it protects fiercely. If they get too hungry, their inner darkness emerges, and they become their hangry form. Their electricity is now dark energy, and they commit all sorts of evil deeds. So yeah, the evil Pikachu. Shocking, isn't it? Koufant is a Pokemon based on Indian elephants, which hilariously were mentioned in some early Pokedex entries like Raichu and Ghastly. Which, considering Raichu is an electric type, he has a type advantage, while Ghastly is a poison type, meaning that his poison would have no effect on them. Anyway, this line is not native to Galar, but were imported to help with construction. These guys are very good at it, as their trunks are tipped with a shovel and they can carry 5 tons without breaking a sweat. Also, they are literally covered in copper, as when they get wet they turn green, just like the real stuff. Level 34, they evolve into Copperaja. Now they're resistant to water, and their tucks are super strong, capable of lifting and crushing giant rocks. And they live in herds led by whoever the most vibrant member is. When G-Max, they have so much power they could level an entire mountain. So yeah, Indian elephants are a thing now. Gen 8 decided to take its fossils in a different direction. You see, in Galar, there's a lady who decided to revive fossils by slamming 2 parts together to make one being. There's 4 of these guys, and... Okay, look, I'm not even going to try to be objective here. I'm not a fan of these guys. And let me explain why. To explain my issues, let's give some context. This region is based on England, which is a very important place in paleontology, as it's where the first dinosaurs were discovered. So, considering that, you might think, oh boy, maybe we'll get a Pokemon based on Iguanodon and Megalosaur. Or they could replace it with Baryonyx, since Megalosaurs are pretty generic looking. Or, ooh, maybe they'll make a Pokemon based on the Crystal Palace dinosaurs. The possibilities are endless, and they may stum off possible chimeras. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, why not? Why not? Look, my issue here is that I feel like these things end up screwing us out of Pokemon based on the individual parts. I mean, look at what we got here. Dunkleosteus, Raptor, a Stegosaur, and some sort of aquatic reptile. So, dear viewer, please tell me, why would they take these animals, many of which are very well loved in paleontology, and have the potential to make cool Pokemon, and then waste them just to make a stupid reference to the Dark Age of paleontology? I feel like if they were going to do this, then the fusion should have either been a choice, you know, like you can get either the whole creature or make a hybrid, or have the hybrids be hybrids of previous fossil Pokemon. Because what they did here... Look, the reason I'm so disappointed is because Gen 6 had some of the best fossil Pokemon in the series, and in all honesty, I'm disappointed at the direction they decided to take the fossils in this gen. As of now, these are still the newest fossil Pokemon, and there still seems to be no sign of getting their true forms, meaning that fans of Raptors, Stegosaurs, and Dunkleosteus are stuck with these hybrids. Ugh, great. Duraludon is a strange metallic creature that has a vague resemblance to a theropod dinosaur. They're said to have a rivalry with Tyranitar, you know, the Pokemon based on Godzilla. And, wait a minute, metallic creature, looks like a theropod, rivalry with a Godzilla-like entity? Where was I going with this? I forget. Anyway, they're surprisingly light considering they're made of metal, allowing them great agility. But they are super weak to rust, and as such they'll go inside at the first sight of water. Although being dragon-type, it resists water in combat, so whatever. When G-Max, they resemble a skyscraper and become incredibly durable. So yeah, the Pokemon that I just can't figure out what it's based on. A metallic creature that has a rivalry with a Godzilla-like monster. That sounds so familiar, but I can't put my finger on it. Gen 8 pseudo-legendary is Dreepy. This Pokemon is based on Diplocalus, and is the ghost of an animal that died many eons ago. They spend most of the time floating around the shores that they used to live on, and despite not needing to eat anymore, they still try to nip at others due to muscle memory. Like all first stage pseudo-legendaries, they're pretty weak, as it's said that even a child could beat them in a fight. Level 50, they evolve into Drakloak. These Pokemon have a Dreepy to care for, which they train for their own evolution. They're so used to raising them that they'll get stressed out if they don't have one, and it's said that if they lose the fight, their Dreepy will abandon them. I guess for being a failure. Finally, at level 60, they evolve into Dragapult. They now have multiple Dreepies, which they keep in the holes in their head, and during battles they launch them at missile speeds. But the Dreepy don't mind, though. They actually look forward to it as well. So yeah, the ghost based on the pseudo-salamander that uses babies as a weapon. Nice. It's good to get at least one good prehistoric-based Pokemon this generation. The Hero Duo are a pair of wolf-like beings. A long time ago, they protected the Galar region from the upcoming Pokemon, and since then they ended up sleeping for many years before awakening for the events of the game. It's unknown if they're related or not. Some believe them siblings, while others believe them rivals. The first one is Zacian. This Pokemon can absorb metal particles and then turn them into weapons. When given their old sword, they rejuvenate it back to its former glory and become a powerful swordsman despite a lack of opposable thumbs. This sword is powerful enough to fall even a G-Max Pokemon in one strike, and it has inspired many legends over the years. The other wolf is Zamazenta. They're like their counterpart, they can absorb metal, and when given their old shield, they get a very large face which can deflect any attack, no matter how powerful. So yeah, the wolves. Eternatus continues the trend of the box legendaries having a Pokemon related to them. Hey, it finally came up with a shorter term. Anyway, Eternatus had its whole deal revealed in the original game since they didn't really make a follow-up to Sword and Shield. They don't really do that anymore ever since DLC was invented. Anyway, they are the being that the wolves fought against and then defeated, but now he's back. He absorbs energy from the land, and it's speculated that he's the reason behind the G-Max phenomenon. Because of the power he gives off, you see. When given enough energy, Eternatus will become a giant hand-resembling creature, which is its true form. When in this form, it has infinite energy and time and space warp around it, so, watch out. Remember when I complained about how in Gen 7 there was the lightning cat that I said had no reason to be legendary? Yeah, this generation did not fix that. And I'd say this is worse because it has an evolution. Why is this guy legendary? Anyways, this guy is a bear that has hairs that look like karate gear. When he pulls it, he becomes stronger. He evolves into Urshifu when it reads certain scrolls, with its form depending on which scroll is read. When reading the Scroll of Darkness, he becomes the Single Strike style, which specializes in delivering single punches that are super strong. But if given the Scroll of Water instead, they evolve into Rapid Strike style, which is water type because why not? The only reason we're given for the water typing is because it strikes so fast that it's like a river flowing. So the octopus isn't water type, but the bear is just because it moves fast like water. Okay then. Anyway, when G-Max, they become super powerful. The end. Zarude is a monkey. They live in groups. Their vines give nutrients to the soil. Why is this guy a legendary? The DLC for Sword and Shield introduced two horse Pokemon. First, there's Glastrier, which has a face covering a super hard ice and will take whatever it wants if it wants it. Then there's Spectier, which can separate souls from bodies with its kicks. Yeah, they exist, alright. Finally, we got Calyrex, which is a weird deer creature with a bulb on its head. Used to be a king and it can ride the horses. And that was Pokemon Generation 8. In conclusion, this franchise has lost touch of legendaries. I guess after Gen 4 literally featured gods themselves, they didn't know where to go from there. Also, no, I got nothing else. See you next time when we finish this series. Well, for now, we don't know when Gen 10's coming out, but considering they seem to introduce a new generation every 3 years now, it'll probably be soon.